Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Field of 68 Media Network's NBA Draft Special. We are going to take you through the next couple hours. Cannot wait for this. I'm John Fanta. He is Rob Dauster. It's draft night, baby. We ready, Rob?
I am so ready, and Fanta, I got to tell you, I am absolutely thrilled to be here with you, to spend this night with you. I had so much fun whenever we do these live streams of the NCAA tournament. The NBA draft is one of my favorite nights of the basketball calendar. Everything is perfect today. Everything is going well. I'm fired up, baby. Let's go. Let's get it.
We are presented by Bet Rivers, and we have a loaded show for you over the next couple of hours. We'll be talking about some of those key over-unders that you're thinking about tonight, that you're wondering, will Chris Duarte jump into the top 12? Will he be outside the top 12? Where's Davion Mitchell going to land? Here's what we know about this draft. We know the top 4 to 5 in that order of it starts at the top, Cunningham, who we'll get to at a moment. But what we don't know is what things will look like deeper into this first round. There are several wild cards on the board. And Zane, NBA Draft TV coverage is starting up right now. There'll be the Detroit Pistons will be on the clock. They don't have anything to think about here very soon. But Zane, we want you to be starting your draft night and staying with us here as your second screen option throughout the night. And Rob, we've already seen the circus begin. It is Adrian Wojnarowski, Shams Charania night, and let's talk about it because the Los Angeles Lakers have already made a splash after that early playoff exit earlier in the spring to the Suns. The Lakers, Russell Westbrook, heading to L.A. to play alongside LeBron James, Anthony Davis. What do you make of this trade that went down earlier this evening?
Well, I'll tell you what, I liked the trade a lot better in theory when it was Kyle Kuzma and Montrezl Harrell for Buddy Hield. I just don't know for the life of me how you are going to put LeBron James and Russell Westbrook on the court at the same time. Russell Westbrook is a guy that dominates the ball. He's a guy that needs to get into the paint to be effective. He is not a guy that you want standing around on the perimeter knocking down shots when he's left open. It's a weird fit to me. I liked it so much more when it was Buddy Hield and when they were able to keep Kentavious Caldwell-Pope as well. I mean, when you have LeBron, all you want are guys that make shots and will play tough defense. And that is not what Russell Westbrook is. I don't understand it, fan. Talk me into this. Make sense of it to me. I don't get why this makes any sense.
Well, I think the first and foremost thing that I have to say is you're talking about LeBron James. You're talking about one of the all-time players in the history of the game. And when he has been alongside just about anybody, he has elevated them. He has figured out ways to make it work more times than he has not. Russell Westbrook comes with a lot. And the Los Angeles Lakers gave up some key assets here, and they're betting on Russell Westbrook's superstardom to fit into the equation here. Now, I have my doubts because guess what? LeBron James has worked with a lot of different players. He is not the player that he was. Father Time is starting to catch up to King James, and I still have full faith in him. I'm not going to bet against LeBron James, but the fact is, Russell Westbrook has always been a ball-dominant player who needs to have the ball in his hands late in a game, and trying to mesh those things out is going to be key. I think we would both agree that Russell Westbrook, in the minds of NBA followers, fans, everybody, whether he's loved or hated for who he is as a player, the thought I've always had in mind is I don't think Russell Westbrook can be the best player on a team that's winning the NBA championship. It's now or never for Russ. And he's going to have to do things differently for this to work. I get why they did it. I did like the Buddy Hield idea more. I'm fascinated by it. This is sports talk heaven. I'm not going to doubt, but I will say LeBron's never worked with somebody like Russell Westbrook and vice versa for Russ. So I hope that for Russell Westbrook, he overcomes a lot of the doubts about him and puts it all into a team product that if he can make some sacrifices, if LeBron James can work things out with him, if Anthony Davis is working things out with him, when they're at their best, it's a team that can be hoisting a Larry O'Brien trophy.
Yeah, the one thing I will say is this in defense of the trade, and I'm not a huge fan of it. Like I said, I really wish that they would have gotten Buddy Hield. It just makes more sense to put shooters around him. But we all said that Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving was not going to be able to work. That you put those three guys on a court, it's not going to be able to work. To a point, at the end of the day, the best fit that you can have as an NBA organization might just be fitting the three best players that you possibly can on the same roster and then figuring it out. And if we've known one thing about LeBron, it's that he's going to find a way to win. Like, he's going to be in the mix at the end of the day. If they didn't end up having all of the injuries, if the Lakers didn't this season, they probably would have made a run because that's just what LeBron does. So it doesn't really seem like it's something that's that savvy, but it's LeBron. At some point, you just kind of have to bet on him, right?
You do. You have to bet on him, and I'm really intrigued actually to see the return here because I think for Washington, this is a forward-looking trade for them in their attempt to retool some things. I think Kyle Kuzma needed a change just for himself. I don't think that he was fully meshing there in Los Angeles, so I actually think that things could go better for him in Washington. That's just my personal opinion. And Montrezl Harrell is someone who is serviceable. So we'll see what happens here with Washington. I think that it's a very unique move by them. I think it can be forward-looking. We'll see what happens. Let's get to this draft class. The best player in this class, there's no question about it. In a loaded cream of talent at the top, there is no question Cade Cunningham is the best player in this draft class, Rob. Why?
You don't find players at his size with his physical tools that have his ability to score at three levels and to pass the way that he does. He is utterly unique in that aspect. And here's the thing. He put up some ridiculous numbers as a freshman at Oklahoma State, right? He averaged 20 points. He averaged 6.5 boards. He averaged 3.5 assists. He shot 40% from three. He had a couple threes per game. You can see the numbers right there. The clutch points one is the one that really stands out to me. In the last 5 minutes of games within 5 points, he had 106 points in this college basketball season. The next closest person to him had 63 points in clutch possessions. He was so good in the moments that mattered. He wanted the ball in the moments that mattered. But to me, what really makes him special, it's that passing ability. And he didn't really get a chance to showcase it this year at Oklahoma State. Because the thing about this Oklahoma State roster, they got a bunch of guys on there that couldn't shoot. As a team, they shot 33% from three. If you take away Cade's 40% three-point shooting, everyone else shot 31% from three. Every time he put the ball on the floor to drive into the lane, he just saw a wall of defenders in front of him. And he still managed to put up the numbers that he put up. When you get him into an NBA system where there's going to be better shooters, where it's going to be more floor spacing, where you're not going to be able to put 2 and 3 guys in the paint because you don't have to worry about Isaac Likely not making threes, he's going to be that much more effective, and his passing is really, really, really going to shine through. I've seen the comparisons for Luka Doncic, right? Everybody's seen those. I don't know if he can quite get to that level. I think Luka has gotten to a point where you cannot compare a 19-year-old to him and do it with any kind of justification. It's unfair at this point to put that level of expectation on someone like Cade Cunningham. What I will say is this. I think that his worst-case scenario is in 5 or 6 years, you end up with another Chris Middleton. People don't realize, just like we think of Cade as a point guard. People don't realize that he was a guy that was the most efficient scorer in isolation possessions in college basketball this past season. They don't realize he shot 62% at the rim. He was great at getting to the basket, going through those 2 or 3 defenders and finishing. He's just, to me, he's got the IQ. He's got the work ethic. He can defend. You could play him in multiple positions. You could play him at the point. He could be one of these jumbo superstar point guards. I love him, man. I think he is as good a prospect as we've seen come through the college basketball ranks since probably Zion, and before that, maybe even Anthony Davis. He's awesome. With that, we have the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. The Pistons weren't going to use all the time that they had on the clock for this one. We've known for hours that the Detroit Pistons have selected Cade Cunningham with their number 1 pick in the 2021 NBA draft. And how does this impact the Detroit Pistons? Well, Killian Hayes in that backcourt, someone who as a rookie
showed his defensive capabilities. There is also reason to believe that this Pistons young core that we saw last year, Sadiq Bey is one of those guys, somebody that I would expect to make a leap, a good foundation piece, not going to necessarily be a great player, but somebody who can be a steady role guy. And the emergence of Jeremy Grant for them is really interesting. Detroit just got a guy that, as you just said, worst case Chris Middleton. That's an amazing worst case scenario. Cade Cunningham is going to pan out in the NBA. And there are so many things that he did not benefit from in college this past year that I think now, Rob, we're going to see those skills translate, and he will benefit from them in Detroit. And I think that the Pistons have an interesting young core here.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the most important thing to note is that he can play on the ball, and because of his shooting ability, he can play off the ball. So you mentioned Killian Hayes. I think them working together is just kind of the ideal situation. How many great NBA teams do we see right now that have multiple guys that can initiate offense on the roster? So I love it. I mean, you can't ask for something more. Like, what else are you going to do? It's Cade Cunningham. You got to take him, right? You don't have a choice. Be smart.
No, you don't.
And
they were smart. And I just look at the opportunity that he's now going to be able to have to throw that skip pass to an NBA shooter. Shot making has never been better in the association. Never. The rates of it have only gone up. In college basketball, the same cannot be said. All you had to do was watch Oklahoma State play Oregon State in the NCAA tournament to understand that Cade Cunningham was surrounded by some players who simply just did not have the vision that he had, did not have that next level type of stuff. And guess what? That's because no one does. No one did in college basketball, and that's why Cade Cunningham is going number one as the NBA draft is underway. And we turn to number 2 here with the Houston Rockets, and we turn to the first of the 2 Jalen's, Mr. Green out of G League Ignite, who Shams Charania has some information for us on this. Right? We have a tweet, I think. It's coming. Shams said that Jalen Green took a private jet from Houston into New York for draft night. Jalen Green, who also is the most uniquely dressed prospect in this draft, and he's going to take a private jet back to Houston upon getting selected.
Yeah. So anyone that hasn't seen the suit, it's unbelievable, right? It looks like it's diamond pinstripes. He's got the hair flowing. He's wearing bell bottoms. It's one of the most unique outfits I think I've ever seen when it comes to this NBA draft stuff. I think in terms of his game, he is as explosive as anybody that we've seen come into the NBA in a long time. I think he's probably the best scorer in this draft, in my mind, Fanta. I watched every game that he played with the G League Ignite, and it was very clear to me that as a 19-year-old, the things that he was able to do against grown men, against former All-Americans that are fighting for that last NBA contract, it was special. Right. So I think that there's a very real chance that he could be a guy that ends up averaging 25 points a game in the NBA. I really do think that he can get there. Now, my big thing with him is what happens with everybody else or everything else in his game, right? What happens with everything else? What happens with the passing? What happens with the playmaking? What happens with his ability to defend? Because those are the 2 big things. Can he be a guy that makes those reads and finds that cross corner pass, right? Can he be a guy that is actually going to be able to defend? Like, as athletic as he is, he was a terrible defender. Like, he got the highlights because he would just wait and try to jump and seal a pass. And when he did that, he was able to come down and throw down a windmill. But when he wasn't able to get that steal, he's just gambling and missing on those plays. So that was a big concern to me.
As Jalen Green goes ahead of Jalen Suggs, presumably we think number 4 on this draft board tonight with Toronto. Let's look at Jalen versus Jalen here, because you are talking about a fascinating case study. This is literally why the NBA installed G League Ignite, was to say, okay, what's going to happen for the one-and-done college player who reaches the highest of heights? Jalen Suggs did that. He reached the national championship game. He's the reason why the Zags got that far with that amazing game-winning shot, versus the G League Ignite route, where Jalen Green plays against grown men, averages nearly 18 points per game, There's no question that Jalen Green is the most explosive athlete in this class and that his scoring prowess is the best in this class. The questions I have are, what will Jalen Green be like as a defender in the NBA? Because in the G League, I didn't see much defense. And what will we see from him as a playmaker for others? Because there's a larger amount of sample size. And Jalen Suggs has shown us that he could create for others. I think Jalen Suggs has not panned out. I don't think Jalen Green has fully either. I think they're both very talented. I think they both were doing things this past year. They didn't even realize at times what exactly they were doing. They just knew they had the athleticism to do those things. And that's what's going to be really intriguing. It's Green scoring versus Suggs' well-rounded playmaking ability, in which, Rob, I think we talked about this. There were times where Jalen Suggs was going down the floor, and he legitimately knew he was about to do something, but I don't even think he knows just how good he could be.
Yeah, and we'll get to that in 1 second, but I just have to make the point. Your Cleveland Cavaliers, it's apparently official because Woj just tweeted, Cleveland has imagined USC 7-footer Evan Mobley playing on a front line with Jared Allen, some 4-man, some 5. Cavs believe he's a franchise player. Teams tried to trade up to 3, but Cavaliers are keeping it. I forgot how entertaining it was for Woj to try to find a way to break news on the draft without actually breaking the news. Like this is unbelievable. Well, that's a perfect way to put it. Evan Mobley, number 3 to the Cavs. It's happening per a Woj bomb. That isn't really a Woj bomb, but kind of is.
It is happening, and we'll get to Mobley. Woj has just reported now that the Lakers and Wizards have agreed on the trade for Russell Westbrook. So we had a comment earlier saying, is this done? It is done. It is done. Russell Westbrook heading to the Lakers as we keep you rolling here. Evan Mobley going to the Cavaliers at 3 as we do have the number 2 pick in, and the number 2 pick is Jalen Green going to a Rockets team that needs everything. I mean, Houston, think about the whirlwind. If you're a Houston Rockets fan, what have you been through over the last year and a half? I mean, what you went through with James Harden, you got the Russell Westbrook situation. Like, Houston has been through the ringer. They need to restart. Rob, is Jalen Green the right person to initiate this restart with?
Yes and no. At this point, I think that what you have to do with this pick is take the guy that you believe is going to be the best franchise player, the most likely to be a guy that can carry you to win it. When you're the Rockets and you have to pay John Wall $90 million over the next 2 years, like, you just got to take the best available and hope that in 2 or 3 years, everything pans out. Now, for my money, if I was the one making this pick, I'd be taking Jalen Suggs because I put a priority on guys that can be those primary ball handlers, right? That can be those lead guards. I think that Jalen Suggs is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of Drew Holiday or Jamal Murray that actually plays defense, maybe a Chauncey Billups, someone of that caliber. And I think guys like that are proven winners. I think that what you want is these star guards that can play out of ball screens, that can make those passes, that are wired to be able to make their teammates better as well as themselves. And I think that's what Jalen Suggs is. The other part of it is that Jalen Suggs, like, he was Mr. Football in Minnesota, right? He was a guy that has never really played basketball during the offseason until the pandemic hit. Every year in the summer, he was working on RPOs instead of DHOs. And now you get a chance, a kid that athletic, that much of a ball player, right? He is a hooper and a basketball player at the same time, John Fanta. And you're going to tell me now he's focusing on basketball full-time? I don't know how you can say no to that. That kind of elite playmaking lead guard is exactly what you want. And I would take him number 2 overall. So whoever is picking at number 4 right now is probably going to end up getting a steal with one Mr. Jalen Suggs.
Jalen Suggs at number 4. Well, we know that Evan Mobley going to the Cavaliers at number. And let's talk about what Evan Mobley does bring to the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers do have Jared.
Do we lose Fanta here?
Allen, who has proved himself in the NBA. I like this pick for the Cavs. I've warmed up to it as time's gone on. And I think Cavaliers, Rob, Evan Mobley is take some time to develop. He's going to take some time for things to hash out. But Evan Mobley is an elite level defender whose footwork is impressive. It stands out. He's soft on his feet for a guy that's as big as he is. Does he have to put on weight? Yes, he has to put on weight. Are there things with his shot that have to improve? Yes. Evan Mobley's going to take some time to have to develop. So did DeAndre Ayton. And look what happened with DeAndre Ayton. But Evan Mobley, for me, as a defensive player, the Cavaliers' defense has been matador. It's been horrendous. They needed someone like this to help them on the defensive end of the floor. And Woj summed it up with the Cavs believing that he can be a cornerstone piece for their front court going forward. I don't think the Cavs are done tonight because they already traded for Ricky Rubio. I would suspect that Colin Sexton could be a trade piece this evening, but you're picking Evan Mobley because he's a super freak athlete who defends. And get this on Evan Mobley. He won the Pac-12 Player of the Year, the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, and the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year this past season. First power conference player to do all three of those things since Anthony Davis in 2012.
I'll go one step further. He did all of that while helping lead USC, a team that plays zone, to the best 2-point field goal percentage defense of anybody in the country. Here's another stat that I'll give you, Fanta. You ready for this? He was 7 foot with a 7'4" wingspan and averaged 3 blocks per game. And he also averaged 2.1 fouls per 40 minutes. He was the best shot blocker in the country, and he didn't foul anybody. Right?
Yeah.
Here, I got another one for you. He could do all of those things. He shot 30% from 3, but this is the most important stat for me. He ran 15 pick and rolls as a ball handler for USC this past season.
Yeah.
And this is the number that just sums everything up for me. Andy Enfield, the head coach at USC, has been a coach for 9 years at the Division I level, right? 9. 7 of those 9 years, he's ranked outside of the top 80 in adjusted defensive efficiency, according to KenPom's metrics. This season, with Evan Mobley anchoring the paint, they finished 6th. I think Evan Mobley has a chance to be the best defensive center in the NBA. That's his ceiling. I think that he's going to be the best defensive player coming out of this draft. I think that he is a guy that we talk about how skinny he is. You know who else was really, really skinny when he was 19 years old? That guy up in Milwaukee that just won an NBA title.
It's true.
Giannis. He was really skinny too. Now, I don't think that Evan Mobley is going to end up being Giannis. I think that they have a lot of similarities in terms of the way that they can play, the way that they can defend, how good they are with the ball in their hands, some of the passes that they can make. I love Evan Mobley. I have concerns about what he could end up being as a pro. What do we got? You're celebrating over here.
We got a Shams bomb. Toronto is selecting Scotty Barnes at number 4. Scotty Barnes is getting taken number 4 in this NBA draft out of Florida State. Look, I thought Jalen Suggs could be the perfect fit for the Raptors, but you are not going to hear me say a bad thing about Scotty Barnes being in the top 5 of this draft because he could end up being the best player in this draft class. He seriously could be. That's how much I respect his game, his length, his wingspan, the athleticism. But this is the first surprise of the night. We thought that this top 5 could be set in stone, and it very much is not a surprise here on draft night.
That is a shocker. So full disclosure, Fanta and I both sent our producer Dagan our favorite fits for this year's NBA draft, and both of us had number 1 on that list, Jalen Suggs to Toronto with the 4th pick. This is baffling to me. I'm shocked right now. I'm a big fan of Scotty Barnes. I'm a big fan of Scotty Barnes as a guy that's getting picked like in that 6 to 8 range. Not when you have a potential franchise-changing point guard available to you. This is a gift to Orlando at number 5. So my big thing with Scotty Barnes is he is a fantastic defensive player, right? We talk about all this stuff like he can guard 1 through 5. He can guard any position on the floor. Scotty Barnes can legitimately do that. He's 6'9" with a 7-foot wingspan. A 7'3" wingspan, and he guarded point guards for 94 feet for this Florida State team, right? he is a guy that can get down. He doesn't really have the most flexible hips, so he kind of struggles when you put him and force him to sit in a stance against some really quick guards. But his length of stride kind of makes up for it. He can guard anybody. He's a fantastic passer too. He played the point for Florida State this past season, but he struggles so much to score. Like I'm not buying the shot. It's so slow. It's weird. It's awkward. Maybe he can get there. He's a great work ethic guy. Everyone that knows him raves about him as a human being. It's just, this is a weird pick when you can go out and you can get a guy like Suggs at number 4. I don't understand that one at all. But I just want to make one more point real quick, Fanta. Can we put some respect on Leonard Hamilton's name? Can we do that? This is the third straight year that he's had a guy coming off his bench be a first-round pick. This is the second straight year that he's had a guy coming off his bench be a top 5 pick. How many coaches in college basketball could convince players that are that talented to accept a role like that? Not very many. So let's put some respect on Leonard Hamilton's name.
Well, let's put some respect on Leonard Hamilton's name. And you're talking about Tallahassee. You're talking about Florida State. We're not talking about a blue blood in a conference that has 2 blue bloods in it, the ACC. Scotty Barnes is the most switchable defender in this draft class. And you're right. The defense speaks for itself. And you're also right that there are issues with the shot. But by all accounts, this is someone who has put his head down, who has taken on anything his team has needed, and a guy that can play the point, that is a 7'3" wingspan. You could see why he got selected here. I thought that with the Kyle Lowry situation with Toronto and the Raptors going forward, looking for that next go-to playmaker, I thought that guy would be Jalen Suggs in this position. Scotty Barnes is not going to do those things to the degree that Jalen Suggs would have on the offensive end of the floor. So I am surprised by this for the Toronto Raptors because I don't think that this pick necessarily fits their total needs. You just said it, though. The Orlando Magic could use a go-to playmaker themselves. They should be capitalizing right now. The Orlando Magic just ended up winning the lottery on this night by having Jalen Suggs fall to them. Rob, I would argue, personally, that I thought that Jalen Suggs was the second best prospect in this NBA draft class. And our friend Sam Vecini has agreed with us for a good portion of this. And in his top 100 in the last week, he had Jalen Suggs at number 2. Jalen Suggs is about to go number 5 to a Magic team that is looking for that next go-to playmaker. He should get picked number 5. I don't think he should drop any further than that.
I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense.
No.
Maybe it's just because maybe I'm blinded a little bit by the fact that I really like this Gonzaga team that he ended up playing for. And maybe people really think that some of the issues that Gonzaga had during the NCAA tournament are going to shine through. Maybe they're saying that, they had so many great shooters. That's why he was able to do all this other stuff. They're worried about what he can do in the half court because I think 36% of his points came in transition. I just don't get it. Every team in the NBA is looking for guys that can be that ball-dominant point guard, that can be that superstar that you can run everything through. Yes, you want those 3-and-D wings. You want those versatile players. You want those shot makers. You want those floor spacers. Everybody wants 4 Mikal Bridges on their roster to be able to figure out what's going on. Everybody wants guys like Scotty Barnes or a Draymond Green to be able to fill that role. But that's as role players. You still need superstars on your roster. And Jalen Suggs has a chance to be a superstar. I don't get it. But congratulations to Orlando. Now, here's my question. If you have Cole Anthony and you have Markelle Fultz and you have all those other little guards, what do? Like, you got to take them, right? You got to just go with the best player on the board. You don't have anyone you can't get rid of.
Yeah, and Adrian Wojnarowski dropping it. There's no question here. The Orlando Magic are taking Jalen Suggs with the number 5 pick. If you're the Magic's front office right now, you have to be elated about this. As we're getting some comments in right now about what happens after the number 5 pick, why don't we jump into that here on the show? We've talked about this top 5. What's going to happen here? 6 through 10, 11 through 15, team needs. Oklahoma City could use just about anything right now themselves. They need talent. And there's a thought here. Every position, quite literally. That's what the Thunder need. That was my position on this. I'm wondering here, because I think he's going to go in the next couple picks, where does James Bouknight fall in your mind, Rob Dauster, the UConn star?
Well, I think you take him at number 6 if you're the Thunder. He's the guy, for me, that is probably the best scorer left in this draft and probably the highest, the most likely guy to end up being a very, very good NBA player that you can kind of build around. I would say Jonathan Kaminga probably has the highest ceiling, but I think that Book Knight is the most likely guy to end up being a really, really good pro. I just love that you went with Thunder every position.
Well,
that about sums it up. They suck. They got nothing good.
no, they're in a bad spot. You see a lot of need for wings. And that's another thing here is as we look at this draft order, there are some wings out there in this kind of 7, 8, 9 type of range. Sacramento clearly has wanted to be active. The Warriors own pick 7 and 14 in this draft, and the Grizzlies in that trade yesterday have gotten up to number 10. So we'll see what happens here on this Field of 68 draft special. We are presented tonight by Bet Rivers. And let me tell you about our sponsors over at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up yet, Bet Rivers is offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart from everyone else is that they require just one playthrough to turn that bonus into cash money. Cash money. With their new Rush Pay instant approval, folks, withdrawals are not only fast, they are safe, secure, and reliable. Go to betrivers.com today or download the Bet Rivers iOS app. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem, you can call 1-800-GAMBLER. For the gamblers out there, we bring you over-under. Dauster's over-unders. What kind of a night is Rob Dauster going to have? Is he going to make enough for one last summer vacation with the Dauster family? Or is he going to go to his bedroom with a walk of shame tonight? Give it to us, Rob.
So the first one that I have on there is Corey Kissberg. And the line there was Corey Kissberg getting picked in the top 13. When you say over 13.5, it means you get picked after the top 13. You pick 14, 15, 16. Under means 11, 12, 13. I think he's going to go under. You were getting plus odds on that. And the big thing was I just figured he was going to end up in Charlotte. Michael Jordan loves drafting these guys that were college All-Americans, right? That's what he does. He drafts players like Adam Morrison and P.J. Washington and Miles Bridges and Frank Kaminsky. Those are the guys that he loves. Corey Kissberg, the perfect example of that this year. Next one up, I like Davion Mitchell. His line ended up at 12.5. Davion was a guy that I think was a little bit of a victim of recency bias. I think a lot of people forgot just how good he was during that run to Baylor's national title. I think they fell in love with some of these prospects that come in and look so good in workouts while realizing that these guys look great against chairs, but when they have to go up against Davion Mitchell, it's an off night for him. That's why he had that nickname. I like the over there. I think he probably ends up with Indiana at the 13th pick. Trey Murphy, Fanta, this guy might be my favorite story in all of the NBA draft. He was a 5'8" high school freshman. He was a 6'2" high school junior. He was 6'4" as a senior in high school. He got to Rice at 6'8". He is now 6'9". He transferred to the University of Virginia. He was a 43. Let me make sure I have this stat right. He was a 43% three-point shooter there. He is a guy that has the athleticism to maybe one day win a dunk contest. I think he has real potential as a 3-and-D wing, and I think it makes a lot of sense for him to end up somewhere at the back end of that lottery in the same range as the fourth guy on this list, the one and only Chris Duarte from the University of Oregon. I love Duarte. I think that right now, he's 24 years old. I think right now at this very moment, he is a guy that is worth $10 to $12 million a year on an NBA team. If he ends up with, let's say, the Warriors at the 14th pick, you're getting a guy that was a 42% three-point shooter. He shot 69.2% effective field goal percentage on catch-and-shoot jumpers. That was the 99th percentile in college basketball this past season. He shot 55.1% effective field goal percentage on pull-ups. That was the 98th percentile last season. He's not just a shooter, though. He shot 63% at the rim at half court. That was elite for college basketball prospects. He's 6'6". He's switchable. He's 24. He's ready to go right now. Draft him on the Warriors. Get better. Hit the under. You're going to win. It's that simple. All right. Next up, we have Kai Jones, my guy Kai Jones from Texas, who I think we're going to do this a little bit later, but he's one of my favorite lottery tickets in this year's draft because he's a kind of guy that has the world at his fingers when it comes to the potential that he has. He's 6'11". He can do things you're not supposed to be able to do on a basketball court, Fanta, when you're 6'11". Yeah. He can square you up on the perimeter, pump fake, one dribble, dunk on your head. He did that to Jeremiah Robinson Earl in this draft already. We're going to get to him in a little bit. But Jeremiah Robinson Earl, one of the best front court defenders. Go ahead. You got something to say?
So you think Kai Jones is a top 15 pick tonight in this draft? What do you have?
I do not. I do not. I have him going. I think he's going to fall. I think he is a guy. To me, he's one of these guys where he's either going to be one of the top 5 players to come out of this draft, or he's not going to be on a roster in 4 years.
He's a boomer bust guy. He's a boomer bust guy. But if he booms, Rob, you could argue he's the second best big man behind Mobley. If he pans out.
Yeah, he might be. Like the big thing with him, he's got all of these skills. He also averaged 8.8 points and 4.8 boards, right? Think about him. He is from the Bahamas, right? He trained as a long jumper until he was like 15 years old. He's never really like learned how to play. He doesn't have a feel. He's not one of these guys that started playing basketball when he was 5. Like he's 5 years into his basketball career. That's it. So you have a lot of stuff you have to teach him in terms of where he needs to be positionally, when he should be able to move to this spot, when he needs to go over here, what read he has to make when he does this. So I think he probably drops out of the top 15, which is why I have the over on him. But I think he's a great kid and I'm rooting for him. But all it takes is one team to fall in love with you and you can get picked in that top spot. And the last one is Trey Mann. And I think this one's interesting just because there were a lot of rumors and a lot of rumblings, and I saw a lot of mentions from some of the guys you want to follow in the draft stuff that said the Lakers really like him at number 22. So you're able to get him at plus odds on the under here, and I just thought that was one that was worth mentioning if you can still grab it at Bet Rivers. So that's what we got. Do we have another pick while I was going through this whole rant? Did we miss one yet?
No, you did all that while we were still waiting, from my knowledge. We're waiting on things to become official with that number 6 pick. We're right in James Bouknight, Franz Wagner territory.
Shams bomb. Josh Giddey, number 6.
Wow.
Josh Giddey went 6 to Oklahoma City. Wow. I didn't see that one coming.
I did not see that one coming.
Josh, we got curveballs all over the place.
Yeah, we do have curveballs. We did not see this. We thought Josh Giddey might be someone around the 9, 10, 11 range. Josh Giddey is someone at 18 years of age, international talent, at 6'8", a very dynamic playmaker. Oklahoma City is a team that was in a very unique spot. They thought about moving up. I'm fascinated by this because Josh Giddey was not expected to go this high, but 18 years of age and somebody that I expect to be a very versatile offensive talent in this league. Very rangy, very unique.
I watched a bunch of film on him, Fanta, and he's like this 6'7" point guard type that can make all of the passes. Like you watch him, and he's got driving right, throws a no look to the opposite corner. Driving left, throws a no look, drop off to the big guy. He's a terrific passer. My concern with him is that he's not a shooter. He's not going to space the floor himself. I don't know how much shooting Oklahoma City actually. I'm in Cade Cunningham mode right now. Oklahoma City actually has on their roster right now, and I'm worried about the fact that he's one of these guys that is kind of taller and a little bit slower. He's not as physical as a Luka Doncic, so defenders can kind of get up underneath him. I don't love him as much as some of the other evaluators did, but I understand it.
Here's the one problem with Josh Giddey. Any team that he played as time went on started to say, we're going to go under. We're going under on screens, and we're going to dare you to shoot it. And the jump shot is questionable. And anytime that's in a place of question, you do start to guess. But what Oklahoma City is betting on here is his size, his versatility in terms of what do they have to build around him. Well, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the one piece that Oklahoma City has, but I don't know about this fit. I don't know if it's the perfect fit for Josh Giddey to be on the Oklahoma City Thunder because his offensive game is a bit limited. There's no question. There's no question that when I look at Josh Giddey, I see someone with size. I see someone with skill. And Rob, he is a magician with the basketball. I mean, he's somebody who has that next level floor vision. So I see the ability to handle things there. I see the ability to, at 6'8", he can get past a defender and make a play for somebody around him. But if you dare him to shoot the basketball, and that's always a concern, if I'm somebody looking at a player who simply cannot make those 15 to 17-foot jump shots, are you going to be able to have a long career in this league? Is it fixable? Yes. But I am surprised that Josh Giddey is pick number 6 in this draft.
Yeah, I'm with you there too. I would have liked to see James Bouknight end up at Oklahoma with Oklahoma City. I just think he's the kind of guy that can eventually be a scorer that ends up being your first option. And I'll tell you, there were a lot of people that thought James Bouknight was going to end up being the 6th pick, to the point that his line for the draft odds, we talked about the over-unders, it got all the way down to 6.5. So anybody that had James Bouknight over 6.5, they're counting that money now, Fanta. They're counting that money. They're winning it big like John Fanta does on the NBA Finals.
Yes. No names, please. But yes. We are in James Bouknight territory. But, folks, 2 major surprises here. Just to recap quickly, the Raptors at number 4 picking Scotty Barnes. We thought Scotty Barnes might be the number 6 pick in this draft. Josh Giddey goes number 6 to the Thunder. So now you got Bouknight. You got Franz Wagner. You've got Jonathan Kuminga. Where's Jonathan Kuminga going to fall? You're betting on potential. You're betting on his
I gotta say, I hope he doesn't go number 7, because right now I have Jonathan Kuminga falling outside of the top 7. But in all honesty, though, I really do think that James Bouknight is a pretty much perfect fit on the Golden State roster.
I agree.
Right? Think about what they have. They have a guy in Steph Curry and a guy in Klay Thompson who are still going to be elite shooters, but are aging a little bit. They have someone in Draymond Green who is a terrific defender, an elite passer, and is not a guy that is going to end up being a threat to really score the basketball. They need someone else that can go out and get them a bucket. When they're dealing with all the floor spacing, they need someone that can go out and get them a bucket. So I think that's James Bouknight. I would love to see him. As a guy that grew up a UConn fan, I would love to see James Bouknight on the same floor as Steph Curry, as Klay Thompson, and as Draymond Green. Let's get it, fam.
I think James Bouknight fits the bill for the Warriors because the Warriors need an offensive playmaker who can put pressure on the rim, someone who can drive, hang, finish with both hands, somebody who can drive, hang, perhaps make a play for one of those veterans. James Bouknight is the spark that the Golden State Warriors backcourt could really use. Now, there are other players on the board here, but I think that Bouknight is the one. And, Rob, with where James Bouknight is from a jump shot perspective, there's not going to be pressure on James Bouknight to make jumpers in Golden State from the start. There's going to be pressure on him to attack the rim and perhaps add a spark to a backcourt that is aging. Bouknight, he answers the bell. We have Jimmy telling us, Davion Mitchell, please, to the Warriors. I love your love for Davion Mitchell, Jimmy. But guess what? The Warriors have the 14th pick. They can get creative to get Davion Mitchell. They don't need to take Davion Mitchell here. I think that James Bouknight should go to the Golden State Warriors.
Oh, no. Woj, Golden State is still discussing trades with the number 7 pick, but Jonathan Kaminga is at the top of the board if they keep it. For 1.
Shams says that Golden State is picking Jonathan Kaminga.
Yeah, I will say this. That pick doesn't make very much sense to me because I think the Warriors right now are very much in win-now mode. And to me, John is one of the lottery tickets in this draft. And we got a couple of guys that are lottery tickets here that we can talk about. But Jonathan Kaminga is not ready to contribute to an NBA team right now. I just don't think that he is. He is a guy that in 5 years' time, I think has the potential to end up being a top 10 to 15 player in the NBA. Guys that are 6'8", with his kind of athleticism, his kind of ability to face up and make a play, his burst around the basket, his first step, his potential as a switchable defender. You can see it right there. I think he has a chance to one day be a top 15 player in the NBA. He also has a chance to be a guy that in 4 years, when he gets a new contract, is getting the veteran minimum. He's going to end up being someone that doesn't even end up being a starter. He can't shoot. He doesn't know how to play defense right now. I don't get this pick for the Golden State Warriors for a team. Like, how much shelf life do you have with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson? Like, those guys are old. Klay Thompson has missed the last 2 years with injury. Steph Curry might have burned out everything that he has left in the tank last season carrying that team. Doesn't make sense. We talked a little bit about Kai Jones earlier and how good that he can be. He's one of my favorite lottery tickets too. And then Isaiah Jackson. I'm curious your take on him, Fanta. I think Isaiah Jackson is kind of the prototype for being like a rim running, shot blocking, kind of vertical spacing five. He's 6'10" with a 7'3" wingspan and an unbelievable vertical burst. He's got he can really go up and get it. My thing is with him, Clint Capella was just traded this past season, right? He was traded for a non-lottery pick. I think a guy like Clint Capella is like a top 2% outcome for Isaiah Jackson for what he could end up being. So I don't know where you take Isaiah Jackson in this draft, but I think he has a chance to be a very, very effective pro a long way down the road.
I think once we get into the 20s, if he's still on the board there, which I think he will be, a team's got to wait picking Isaiah Jackson. You know why? He jumps out of the gym. I mean, you were talking about someone described this. I've read this a couple times. Pogo stick. When I think Isaiah Jackson, I think of a pogo stick type of player. The problem is awareness. Does he have the understanding of when to take that shot? Taking the right shots is so important in the association. And so for Isaiah Jackson, that lottery ticket type of feel, when he's at his best, he presents the athleticism, the length, the range, the versatility to be a multi-tool player in the NBA. It's that decision-making. It's turning the ball over. He turned it over almost 3 times per 40 minutes, a 1-to-2 assist to turnover ratio. And the problem with Isaiah Jackson was a lot of those turnovers, they were on bad footwork, they were on travels, they were on charges. This is someone who I think is a very interesting player, but there are questions that I have on his offensive game where he sometimes does more than he's even being asked for. Joe says Jackson will land on the Knicks. It would not surprise me at all if Isaiah Jackson is a New York Knick tonight. It would make sense. But going back to Jonathan Kaminga, it appears that Golden State is going to take Jonathan Kaminga. What you're saying, if you're taking Jonathan Kaminga, is this.
By the way, real quick, we have the 8th pick in, according to both Woj and Shams. Franz Wagner is going 8th to Orlando. And one, I didn't see very many people speculating that Orlando would go after Franz Wagner on the spot. And 2, the Magic got way better tonight. Like, no matter what happens, I think that they're probably the biggest winner outside of the team that got Cade Cunningham. I think that Orlando's probably the biggest winner. You got a potential franchise-changing point guard in Jalen Suggs, and you got Franz Wagner, who, for my money, might end up being the best role player to come out of this year's draft class. Here's my favorite stat. I got a stat for you, okay?
Okay.
You ready for this, Fanta? This was my favorite stat in college basketball last year. Franz Wagner. Wow. It was. Franz Wagner was a sophomore, right? Their center, Hunter Dickinson, on that same Michigan team, was a freshman. Hunter Dickinson was 9 months older than Franz Wagner. Here's another one for you. Franz Wagner's birthday is August 27th. Scotty Barnes' birthday is August 1st. Franz Wagner, a sophomore, is more than a year younger than Franz Wagner is 4 weeks younger than Scotty Barnes, a freshman. Think about that. Age has to come into this stuff when you're trying to determine what somebody's upside could end up being. And Franz Wagner, for everything that he did, was essentially the age of an elite freshman when he did it at Michigan this past season. So keep that in mind. He averaged 12 points, 6 boards, 3 assists. He shot 34% from 3. I buy the jumper long term. I think that he ends up somewhere in that Robert Covington to Mikal Bridges range. And if you can get that kind of elite role-playing defensive menace, that's exactly what you need to win in the NBA in this day and age. So I love that pick for the Magic. They got a lot better.
Oh, they did. I mean, you got someone who's going to provide you wing depth in Franz Wagner, somebody who is Mr. Fundamentals, but that I think has the skill set to be a real complementary player in the NBA with the potential to be one of the best 3 or 4 players on an NBA team. And you just said it. I mean, hats off to Magic General Manager John Hammond and the Orlando Magic front office. The Magic have won the night in the first 50 minutes. The night. I don't even care what else happens in this draft. Please don't stop watching us. Grab a bowl of popcorn and sit down. But the Orlando Magic, because of placement, some fortune, call it what you will, they didn't overthink. They didn't trade anything else. They attacked. They got perhaps the second or third best prospect in this draft at number 5. And we could talk about why did Jalen Suggs fall that far. I want to dive back into that later into the night when we have some time. You got Jalen Suggs. You got Franz Wagner, who is someone who is highly, highly efficient. And I'll tell you what, I think that this is a tremendous couple of picks. I'm wondering here what Sacramento does at number 9. I would think with James Bouknight on the board, I think with a couple of the other, Moses Moody on the board, there could be some movement here. Like Sacramento's in a place where I think they got to be taking some calls. If I'm the Kings, I'm drafting Moses Moody or I'm drafting James Bouknight, one of the two.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think that they're going to take Bouknight. I don't think so either. I don't think that he worked out for them. I might be making that up. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm pretty sure he didn't work out for them. I do think that it makes a lot of sense for them to get Moody as a guy that can be kind of the defender, the versatile defender, the floor spacer. He makes a ton of threes. And if you put a guy like that around someone like a De'Aaron Fox, it just creates so much more space. And look, let's call it like it is. They have to get better defensively. They were horrible defensively. They were one of the worst defensive teams, I think, in the history of the NBA last year. So getting a guy like a Moses Moody in is going to immediately make you better. Now, I think Moody's upside is kind of muted a little bit, right? Like he doesn't have this kind of burst and he's not this crazy explosive athlete. I don't know, calling him like an average athlete is like compared to us is a joke. But if you're comparing him to a normal NBA player, like he's just a very kind of middle of the pack athlete in terms of explosiveness. So I think there's a little bit of muted upside, but no, all I'm saying is like he very much fills a role. And I think at this point in this draft, Bouknight is the guy that has the real upside. But I think we've kind of reached a point where most of these guys you're drafting to kind of do a job and fill a role, if that makes sense.
Here's the thing, though. If I have to choose between out of the gym athleticism or even good athleticism, Moses Moody, he's not in the category of being one of the great athletes in this draft. He is as high as he is on boards because Moses Moody is a bucket. He's a shot maker. He has a great feel for the game offensively. And the Sacramento Kings could use more of that. And that's why he worked out for them, and he could provide them some depth at the wing. Moses Moody is someone that I look at and say, I think he could be an all-star candidate. I don't think that he's even one or two of the best players on a team. I think he would be a terrific, with the right talent assembled at the top, a terrific number 3 option on an NBA team because he is a shot maker. He is someone who has a feel for the game. Moses Moody showed this past year that he has a tremendous feel for the game. High IQ player. The ball comes off his hands well. I get the part about athleticism, but I do weigh. In today's NBA, I'll take the shot maker, knowing that some of the athleticism isn't there. Maybe you disagree with me. Great shot maker who doesn't have great athleticism, or great athlete who's not a great shot maker.
I agree with you 100% in terms of the guy that I would want on my roster. There's also something to be said for the fact that everybody that speaks about Moses Moody references his professionalism and the way that he kind of carries himself and who he is as a human being. And I think that that's something that you want to bring into your organization as well.
And he's only 19 years old.
Yes.
He's only 19 years old. You're betting that he'll continue to evolve. And look, the first step quickness, it's not there. But he does defend. He showed us that he is capable of defending. When I look at tape, when I look at his description, I just think that Moses Moody could be the right selection in this case. And I'll tell you what, I am surprised based on the rumblings that we saw earlier today that here we are potentially staring at number 10. And there's still a lot of talented players who are on this draft board who we thought might go earlier.
I just lost it. I lost another bet, Fanta. Sacramento. Remember how I said they want to get better defensively? Sacramento. Drafting Davion Mitchell. I actually love that.
Well, I got to tell you, this is the feel-good story of this NBA draft. This is a guy who nobody has done more for themselves in the last year than Davion Mitchell has done for himself. And look, Davion Mitchell is the premier defender in this draft class. Elite level defender. But Rob, you've studied up on Davion Mitchell. And to just call him a defensive player is unfair.
Yeah, he's a better shooter than anybody is going to give him credit for. Now, if you want to tell me that you're a little bit worried about it, he shot 45% from three this past season as a senior. But that was like the 1 year blip. Every other season, he's been kind of in that 29 to 33% range. He shot 65% from the free throw line. So I am a little bit concerned about whether or not this is something that's replicable and something that's going to end up being consistent. But Davion is more than just he's not a guy that's just a jump shooter. He is a really good passer out of ball screens. He is a guy that can get into the paint and find people in the opposite corner. He is the most explosive first step that I have seen, I think, since I've been doing this. Like his ability, he takes one dribble and he's at the rim and he's by you and he's laying it in. He's limited offensively in what he can do in terms of being like a big time creator. I don't think you want him to be your sole point guard, your lead creator. But if you put him next to De'Aaron Fox, all of a sudden you have the most athletic backcourt, probably in the Western Conference, maybe in the NBA. You have a guy that can be a Patrick Beverley level defender on the defensive end of the floor, a complete ball hawk, one of the best on-ball guys I've ever evaluated, and a player that has some real potential on the offensive side of the floor and some real skills already, and a guy that is just wired different. That's the biggest thing about him. He is wired different than anybody else. He's crazy. All he cares about is winning. All he cares about is competing. All he wants to do is work on the defensive end of the floor. So let me tell you a quick story.
Okay.
I was down at Peach Jam this past weekend, and I watched a game with Scott Drew. I sat next to him, and I was asking him about their decision to go from being a team. Baylor was a program historically that played this like funky 1-1-3 zone that wasn't very good, that wasn't very effective, that everyone kind of said like, hey, you know what? I don't know why this is going to work. It's kind of why people for a while always made that Scott Drew can't coach joke. Remember those? It feels like forever ago, and those people probably feel very stupid right now about the way that they felt about that. But he always played this zone, and Davion Mitchell was the guy that kind of said to him, This is what the Baylor coaching staff was saying. Is Davion Mitchell was the guy that said to him, look, we have these elite defensive talents. Let's play man-to-man. You're completely wasting what I do if you're going to make me sit back in the zone. So that's how they kind of came to the decision that they need to make a change in terms of what they're going to do on the defensive end. So that's long story short. Mitchell is not a guy that is wired to that. He loves basketball. He loves competing. And those are the guys that you want in your organization.
Yeah, I think for Davion Mitchell, it's just the adjustment of now going to the association and making sure that the game's not too fast for him. I think we noticed this past year, the one area, the flawed area, is that at times he was trying to fit passes in such tight windows that things would go the wrong way. And could be over aggressive at times. But you'll trade if you're getting the kind of defense that he could play, and the fact that when that shot is falling, and look, there's some suspicion out there. The book is simple with Mitchell. Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about his shooting capabilities. He just plays so damn hard. He plays so damn hard. And you can't tell me that doesn't translate to the NBA when he's someone who I know at 6'2" plays a lot bigger, Rob, than 6'2". He is 6'2", but he plays like he's 6'4", 6'5", as we are through the top 9 in this draft. We turn to number 10. Now, this was a trade. Memphis Grizzlies jumping to the number 10 pick. This trade reported yesterday. This is the Jonas Valanciunas trade that went down. It's an interesting move. I actually think that both teams are winners in this trade, potentially. The Grizzlies, they get better because they bring in a veteran, Steven Adams, another guy in Eric Bledsoe. They get that 10th pick and a top 10 protected 2022. The Pelicans get Valanciunas, and they still have that 17th pick here in the top 20 of this first round. But for the Memphis Grizzlies, although they're taking on some money here, to be at this 10th pick where you have Moses Moody on the board, I don't think that they would take James Bouknight. I think that Memphis they're in more of a need of someone on the wing, of a 3-and-D type guy. Don't you think that Moses Moody is that type of guy?
No, I think that the very obvious pick that Memphis needs to make here, the best pick that they could possibly make is Zaire Williams. And oh my gosh, would you look at that? Well, Sean just said it's Zaire Williams from Stanford going to Memphis. Zaire is interesting. I think he was a guy that came out of high school.
I don't like this pick. I don't like this pick by Memphis. I'm just
so it's I'm torn on this, right?
Okay.
So there's a couple things about it. I think that coming out of high school, he was a guy that had a lot of the hype is exactly what you want that NBA kind of wing to be. He's 6'8". He is someone that could be an initiator, a shot creator in the half court. He's a guy that was probably a better shooter, I think, than what his number said when he was in college. And part of the reason why he struggled a little bit at Stanford and why he was not as impressive as maybe the level of expectation he had. Remember, he was at Sierra Canyon, which is the same high school program that BJ Boston was at, that Bronny James is at, that Dwayne Wade's kid is at. Like that's the high school basketball program for the celebrities, right? So he had a lot of hype coming out of there. But you got to look at it in the context of what Stanford's one season was. They lived in a hotel for the first 3 or 4 months of the season because the COVID regulations in the Bay Area where Stanford University is would not have allowed them to be able to practice. There were too many people in one area. So they were living in hotels. They were on the road permanently so that they could practice at the Santa Cruz Warriors G League facility because they were allowed to have that many people in a room there. They couldn't do it on campus. So they were away from home. He left the team in January because, one, of everything that was going on, and two, a death in the family that really messed him up when he was just in complete isolation during the season. And three, he left again during the Pac-12 tournament because of another death for a person that was close to him. So out of all of the prospects that dealt with stuff during this past season, I think Zaire Williams had it about as bad and about as difficult as anybody. And with how much that we put an emphasis on mental health, I think it's important to note that he was very, very clearly going through it during his 1 year. Now, he did not play well during that year. So if you are betting on him with the number 10 pick, with guys like Moses Moody on the board, with guys like James Bouknight on the board, then you are betting on the fact that so much of what he would, like the reason why his performances were what they were is because he was just not right. And that makes total sense to me. But I also understand the argument if you want to say that you weren't impressed with the shot making, you're worried about how skinny he is, that he needs to develop it. If you're worried about his game, I totally understand it. But I do think it's important to note that he was really going through it this past season. So I understand why someone might be willing to bet on him figuring it out.
I do understand that. And I want to preface this by saying that for Zaire Williams, we wish him the very, very best going forward. Hope he has a tremendous NBA career. I hope that those mental health issues, that the things that he's going through, that he's found the proper treatment and that he has been able to find progress in dealing with those different issues. And we wish him the very best on that side. As a prospect in this draft, where I look at Williams, I see a 6'9" guy who I question the strength. I think that there's some sample size that says he was getting blown by at times. The physicality wasn't always there. He shot 29% from three this past year. So for Zaire Williams, the jump shot is something that has to come along. If it does, you're talking about a guy that at 6'9", as versatile as he could be, there's all-star upside to this guy. I think that there's a boom or bust type of association to his skill set. And that's why he's in this situation here at number 10. But I don't know. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what ends up happening here, because Zaire Williams is someone who is a super freak athletically, and is someone who's gone through a lot. And there's all the measurables check out, Rob. All the measurables check out. But this is a shot-making league, and Zaire Williams is going to have to grow in that aspect to be the type of talent they think he can be.
Yeah, honestly, we probably should have had him on our lottery tickets list, because I think that he's one of those guys that fits into that conversation. If it hits and if it clicks and if it ends up working out for him, he's going to be a really, really good player that looks really, really good for getting him where he is picked. If it doesn't, then this is going to end up being the kind of thing that does not look great for that Memphis front office. But I will say this. They have a guy in that organization by the name of Ja Morant. And Fanta, I don't know if you know this, but Ja Morant makes people better.
He does. He does. I love everything about Ja Morant. And I thought what he did at Golden State in that playing game was everything you need to see of why Ja Morant is going to be a long-time NBA star, superstar. Sky's the limit. So why does Zaire Williams get picked number 10 here tonight? He gets picked number 10 by Memphis because they believe that he's got the work ethic, that he's got the attitude to be better. And when you've gone through the crap that Zaire Williams has had to deal with in the past year, the different life events, the different stuff, Zaire Williams is better because he's fought through that adversity, and now he's going to live out his dream in the NBA. I think situationally, it's something that could work out.
The last thing that I'll note, and it goes along with what you just said right there, if you are someone that needs to continue to work to get better, I think getting put into an environment like you'll have in Memphis is a very good thing. Like those guys, there's a reason they call it Grind City. There's a reason why that city and that organization loves Dylan Brooks. They work. They get better. They're going to play hard. And if you take a kid with talent that maybe needs some of that kind of worked into him a little bit, then I think it makes a lot of sense.
Here we go. Number 11, Charlotte Hornets. A bit of a surprise. The Charlotte Hornets were looking for a scoring guard, somebody else that could score for them. They have found a guy that if he is at his best, the upside's there for him to be a 20-point per game guy in the NBA. James Bouknight is heading to Charlotte at number 11. Adrian Wojnarowski reports.
That's a good spot for him. I really like that spot for him. That's a good spot. Here's the thing about Book. And I got another stat. I got lots of stats for you today, Fanta. Are you ready for this one?
You've brought the numbers tonight, Dauster. I got the numbers.
I got some stats. All right, you ready for this? So, James Bouknight, average 18.7 points, average 5.7 boards, shot 29% from three. That would be really concerning if you didn't consider this fact. Do you know how many unguarded catch and shoot jumpers, according to Synergy, James Bouknight shot this past season? Just take a guess. Played 15 games. How many unguarded catch and shoot jumpers do you think he took?
Not many at all.
10.
Yeah.
10.
Yeah, not many at all.
That is an exceptionally low number. And I feel like this is kind of obvious, but I'm going to say it. Unguarded catch and shoot jumpers are going to be the highest percentage shot that you end up making in the NBA. Those are the easiest shots that you could take in terms of threes. He took 10 of them in 15 games. His shot selection and his difficulty. Well, one, his shot selection was kind of bad. And at points, it was something that was a little bit concerning if you didn't take into context the fact that UConn had nobody else that could create anything. But he took a lot of very difficult shots. It's kind of the same thing as a little bit like Anthony Edwards last year, where he had to do so much offensively that you could look at his shot and you could say, okay, I think he's probably going to shoot it pretty well. I can feel better about this 29% three-point shooting than I did. And that's the way that I feel with Bouknight. Like, I think that release is really clean. I think that he's going to end up being a good shooter in the NBA. I buy it long term. And I think this is a great pick. You need a shooter. You need a shooter on the floor with LaMelo Ball. He's going to get you wide open shots. You need guys that can make shots. And I think James Bouknight is a guy that can make shots.
Yeah, and with Malik Monk and Devontae Graham, both restricted free agents here with Charlotte, Charlotte has to look at what their future holds, and James Bouknight can be a part of that future with LaMelo Ball. And you're exactly right. There is no question that James Bouknight, with the availability of more uncontested shots, those are going to happen in the NBA. They're going to come in the NBA, especially when you're playing alongside a primary playmaker in LaMelo Ball. So for James Bouknight, the 6'5" height combined with a 6'8" wingspan, and just what he showed us in a 15-game sample size. Yes, he had the arm injury. He was sidelined there. James Bouknight, it's not only a case where, Rob, I think he's someone that's a sidekick to LaMelo. James Bouknight can have the ball in his hands late in the game and be the main option. Charlotte's backcourt just became really, really fascinating with this 11th pick because they now have two guys who I think aggressively can make a game-ending play, and that's LaMelo Ball and Bouknight, and I'm really intrigued to see how they work together and to see what Charlotte ends up doing with Cody Zeller here going forward. We talk about top needs. Let's move along here. From 11 to 15, looking at the top needs for these teams in these positions, you're still talking about a Brandon Duarte, Moses Moody, Corey Kispert are all on the board. I'm really intrigued to see here what San Antonio does because I think that Duarte is someone that could fit what they're looking for. He's somebody that could really become acclimated to what Greg Popovich puts down. And I think with the 3-and-D needs, we could see Corey Kispert get taken here at some point, or will he fall?
I hope that he ends up going 13th to the Pacers. I got these underbets that I got to hit. But I mean, look, the Pacers they have to make a decision on Doug McDermott, right? And I think that the best comparison for what Corey Kispert could end up being is probably somewhere in the range of Doug McDermott. I don't think that he's quite good enough defensively to be a Joe Harris. I don't think that he is quite good enough as a shooter, especially running off of screens, to be Duncan Robinson. So I think that he probably ends up in that Doug McDermott range. So yeah, I think that's probably makes a lot of sense there. I got a feeling that the Spurs are going to end up taking this Alperen Şengün guy from Turkey because that just feels like a Spurs pick, doesn't it? A big guy from Europe that can really, really pass, that you don't know if he's going to be able to play defense.
Hey, let me tell you something, though. There is so much sample size in the European game that suggests that a player like him could end up panning out because when he does get selected, I've got more on Alperen Şengün, but you're talking about a 19-year-old who is 6'10", 235, has an incredible motor, is terrific with the basketball, understands the way that a team plays as they do in Europe. They do it so well. We're watching in the Olympics right now what that looks like, folks, on the flip side of things. But I think this is a prime spot here, 12, 13, 14. Like, Moses Moody has got to be going here soon because Moses Moody, in my mind, still could have been a top 10 pick solely because of the shot-making ability and because of the fact that he is only 19 years of age. But will the Spurs go the international route? Alperen Şengün is the type of player, Mr. Fundamentals, and offensively, he's as versatile. I don't like hyperbole, but after watching his game, we're talking about as versatile of an offensive performer. He's a defensive liability. But in the NBA, defensive liabilities are able to get away with being a liability on defense if they're that good on the offensive end of the floor. Yeah.
I mean, you're exactly right. I don't think that he's quite at the Nikola Jokic level offensively.
Oh, no.
So my concern is that if you're not quite there, do you end up being a net positive on the offensive, for a team, right?
Yeah, but I think it's an insult to Nikola Jokic that we would try to put him there right now.
Oh, I mean, I don't. What I'm saying is like I don't think he's at that level, and I think Nikola Jokic. I think Jokic is actually more effective defensively than he gets credit for. Like it's not flashy, but I think he does a lot of good things, and he's a good defensive rebounder, and all of that stuff matters. But I do think Sengun is going to be a good pro. I wonder if he doesn't get. He's got to get better defensively to be able to be like a really effective pro. But for right now, I mean, you get him here in this point. The production level that he has at the highest levels of Europe mean that he's going to be a productive NBA player. Like that's just the way that it's worked in recent seasons. I know there's been a lot of busts and a lot of European guys that you don't trust.
Okay.
Whoa.
Woj, Josh Primo. At number 12, a shocker here. Put the draft boards and throw them out. It's Primo time.
Whoa. What?
This is a shocker.
What? I get it to a point. We're talking about a guy 6'5" with a 6'9" wingspan that shot it at 38% this past season. He is the youngest player in this draft. He was born 8 days before the cutoff. If his mother had given birth 8 days later, he would not be eligible for this draft. But I mean, look, he did not have any kind of performance on the ball this past season because Alabama had Javon Quinterly on that roster. They had Jaden Shackelford on that roster. They had Herbert Jones on that roster. He averaged 8.1 points and 3.4 boards. He took 4 mid-range jumpers this entire season. He took 15 shots off the dribble. You're drafting a guy that is this young, that shot 38% from 3 and averaged 8 points a game. 12th with all of the people on the roster. What is happening here? I think what I think happened. I think Greg Popovich is in Tokyo right now, and he got the time zones wrong, and he thinks that they are actually picking with the 12th pick in the second round, and they didn't realize that they were picking in the lottery. What the hell is happening, Fanta?
Okay, either Greg Popovich is smarter than all of us, which he might very well be. I'm shocked by this pick. Our friends over at The Athletic had Josh Primo at number 29 on their consensus big board. That's Sam Vecenie, that's Mike Vorkunov, that's John Hollinger. Look, if there's anybody, and Woj is saying that Indiana is thrilled at the idea that Chris Duarte is available at number 13. The Pacers should be. We'll get to why Chris Duarte is a really, really good pick for the Pacers in our minds. Josh Primo, look, 6'5", 6'9", enormous hands, like you said. And as a guy who can handle the ball secondarily in an offense, he's someone who I would look at and say, okay, there's reason to believe that he could be a second ball handler on a team. That being said, he did not show us at Alabama enough on the ball that he could be someone who really impacts the game as a multi-tool player. We just don't have the sample size. We really don't. And Rob, there was never a time at Alabama, and this isn't to say that he can't do it, but Nate Oates is a pretty damn good coach, right? There was never a time in Alabama where Josh Primo was being asked to be a primary ball handler to make plays for some of his teammates. So I am surprised about this because I think that when you look at who he was at Alabama and the fact that as a defender, he wasn't a great defender, this is a jarring pick. It is the surprise of the draft.
So this is one of those ones where you get a kid into a workout and you get him out of the structure of the team and the program that he was playing within, and you see maybe, okay, look, he's probably better on the ball than he ever got a chance to prove when he was at Alabama, and I could see him making passes, and maybe you take him 5, 6, 7 spots earlier than what he's projected. Like, I understand there's a reason why he was projected as a first-round pick. I don't know what the Spurs saw, and like generally speaking, they're normally pretty good at drafting, so you kind of have to trust what they're doing, although maybe it hasn't been the best lately. But for a team that has all of those guards, like look at all of those good guards that they have in their backcourt. Why are you adding that piece? You need a big guy.
Well,
man,
they're looking at, what San Antonio's betting. Yeah, here's the thing. You say to yourself, okay, knowing that Josh Primo could be a lottery pick in 2022. He would have been. He would have been a lottery pick in 2022 had he stayed for another year. San Antonio is saying, we're going to bet on our player development system. He will be playing in the G League. He's going to be getting reps with us. We're going to put him under our wing. And because we're in this position in the draft, we don't want to be this high again, but because we're in this position in the draft, we're going to bet on Josh Primo getting a lottery pick a year early in the lottery, by the way, because nobody had Josh Primo going in the lottery. They're betting on the upside here and the fact that he is the youngest prospect in this class, that you can sit here and say, you know what, he could play in the G League. He can get better. There's nothing wrong with playing in the G League. We've seen plenty of players come out in the G League and end up playing a major role in the NBA. It's a high upside move. And like I said, he would have been seen as a lottery pick heading into next year. Let's turn the page, though. Pacers here. They're going to pick Chris Duarte. What do you think Chris Duarte is going to be in the NBA?
I think he's going to be a very, very good role player. I think that this pick actually makes a lot of sense for a team that kind of needs some of the, I mean, look, I thought that Corey Kissberg would make more sense because I think he's a better shooter. But when it comes down to it, I mean, we ran through what Chris Duarte is as a shooter, what he is as a versatile player, what he is in terms of instant impact, what he can be as a role player in the league. So it makes a lot of sense. I personally, and maybe it's just because I really wanted to see Duarte on the Warriors, thought that he was going to end up sliding one more pick. It felt like Davion Mitchell was the guy that was leaning towards that Indiana was leaning towards being picked. But look, you're getting a guy that probably should be a $10 to $12 million a year player right now. And you're getting him throughout his prime. He's going to be 24 before he plays an NBA game. You're getting his year 24, year 25, year 26, and year 27 season for about $3 million per year. He is the best value in terms of production and talent per dollar, I think, in this draft class, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Whereas Josh Primo is when you go to that really fancy New York Italian restaurant and you pay about $20 extra for the chicken parmesan than you would have at a hole in the wall. Chris Duarte is the mom and pop bagel shop in Jersey that you can always rely on when you walk in, knowing fully what you're going to get. Don't you just love that feeling? It's like in Tommy Boy when he's selling the brake pads. You love the feeling of a guarantee. Chris Duarte should have a freaking guarantee on his ass that says, I am going to pan out as a role player in the NBA, because that's what I think he's going to pan out as. This is an elite shooter. This is someone who is committed to the defensive end of the floor. Chris Duarte is going to be really, really good at what he does in the NBA, and he'd be really, really good at what he does at any level. And that's why this is a really smart pick by a smart organization. The Indiana Pacers are doing the right thing here. You think about the 53% mark from anywhere in the field. You think about nearly 5 rebounds per game. Oh, by the way, Chris Duarte, he's a good enough passer. There's some areas that need work there, but he's a good enough passer. He averaged nearly 3 assists per game, and he averaged 2 steals per game at Oregon. The Pac-12 had a very good year. Chris Duarte proved that he can defend. This is not just a shot maker, an electric shot maker who doesn't really play defense. Chris Duarte is a good two-way player. It's why I thought that the Spurs might give thought to him. They did not. The Pacers select him. I think that the Pacers got a really good player in a proper zone, proper fit. Indiana should not be faulted at all for this pick. This is an appropriate pick. A thumbs up to the Pacers organization, because Chris Duarte should be a 15-year player in the NBA who's consistent.
15-year player in the NBA? He's going to be there. He's going to be in the league until he's 39?
I've got him there, baby. I know he's 24. Don't let his age keep you from picking him. That's a little bit old.
Fanta.
It's a little bit old. But
Fanta, age is a mindset. Age is nothing but a mindset.
Exactly, Rob. You don't look a day over 25.
that is a lie, but thank you. I appreciate it. I think
Goodman doesn't look a day over 52.
So this,
What
you know what this means?
Here we go.
Your boy, Moses Moody,
Yep,
getting in that last lottery pick, going 14th to the Warriors. I think this ends up working out really, really well for the Warriors. The Kaminga pick didn't really make any sense. And the fact that they went Wiseman and Kaminga with their 2 top 7 picks in the last 2 drafts, while they're trying to find a way to maximize late stage Steph Curry and late stage Klay Thompson and late stage Draymond Green, doesn't make sense. Moses Moody is a guy where the pick actually, I think, does make a little bit of sense, because I do think that right now he could step onto that floor with the Warriors and be able to space the court and be able to knock down shots and be able to be a versatile and switchable defender. So I actually like the Moses Moody pick here quite a bit. He's the best talent left on the board. Sometimes you just gotta get the best available.
I thought that the Warriors could have gotten Moses Moody at number 7. It was about a half hour ago. I was advocating for them to get him at number 7, and they just got him at number 14. So the Golden State Warriors took the ultra athlete who hasn't put together all the basketball skill set yet in Jonathan Kuminga, and then they put together the guy who's not known for his athleticism, who is the high percentage shooter. He is a bucket and has shown enough capabilities that he can play defense. Jonathan Kuminga has not shown that. Rob, is this not salt and pepper? Is this not opposites attracting here in terms of the prospects? Jonathan Kuminga versus Moses Moody, with everything except age, just in terms of where they're at in how you think of them. I think that the Warriors are very unique here in their selections.
Yeah, look, I think that we can kind of like break this down as much as we want, but I think it's very clear that the Warriors are just drafting the best available player that they can in these spots, because that's what they did with James Wiseman. And that is probably what they did with Jonathan Kuminga. And that is probably what they did with Moses Moody. You can make the argument that those were the guys with the highest ceiling on the board. And I think what they're doing is they're just betting on the idea that they can get these guys into the organization and have them get better. It's just something that I think that that's what they believe, right? And I don't know if there's a better place for you to get to if you are a guy that needs to work on your game than to be in practice every day with Draymond Green. Can you imagine not working on your game and then having to answer to Draymond Green? That seems like a pretty awful thing that you have to deal with. So we know how hard Steph Curry works. We know what his work ethic is. We know how hard Klay Thompson works. We know how demanding Draymond Green is. So maybe that's the best case scenario for him, is to get some of these guys that have the talent and need to develop and force them to have to develop. So maybe it's going to end up working. But if you are trying to maximize late stage Steph, late stage Klay, and late stage Draymond, these are just their first two. Their first pick, Kaminga, and taking Wiseman number 2 last year. Just, I don't know. It doesn't really make all that much sense. Seems like a little bit of a waste.
Interesting here by the Warriors. They had a situation where at number 7, they could have gone in a lot of different directions. They went with Jonathan Kuminga. There's uncertainty about whether or not Kuminga will pan out long-term, but they take Moses Moody out of Arkansas, who this past season was tremendous from the perimeter, really, really high percentage shooter. He's just 19 years of age. There's a high ceiling for Moses Moody. There are athleticism concerns, but we'll see how he pans out as the lottery is complete. Now, you look deeper into this first round. I would not say this is the deepest NBA draft class that we've had in a while. I'm not going to sit here and say that. I would say that there are definite, some years this is not the case, but there are definite diamonds that you can find as this first round goes on. We've talked about some of those boomer bust players. We've talked about Isaiah Jackson, somebody that could really pan out here for a team. We've talked about Miles McBride as a sleeper here as time goes on in this first round. Where will the West Virginia guard who's betting on himself? He just kept improving his stock. Where's he going to fall? And where does Corey Kissberg go in this draft? Somewhat more of a guy that people see as we know.
How about number 15 to Washington? How do you feel about that?
I feel like it's a good segue. Yes, I feel like that what you hired me to do actually might pay off a little bit. Corey Kissberg, number 15.
Love it. I love it. He's such a good shooter, man. He is such an unbelievable shooter. And I think that, it's a little bit weird because they're bringing in some different pieces, so you don't really need the spacing as much. But without Russell Westbrook there, yeah. But you're adding a guy that's going to be an immediate impact contributor at a point when Brad Beal knows that he needs guys that are immediate impact contributors around him. Like Brad Beal only has so many years left playing at this level, right? So I do think that getting Corey Kispert, and the thing about him, people are going to look at him and basically just say, all he could do is shoot, right? Well, yes, he's a floppy-haired white guy from Gonzaga. He also dunks on people. He's also 6'7". He has some vertical athleticism too. I don't know if he's ever going to quite end up being as good as Joe Harris is defensively, but I do think that there's enough there to tell me that he's not quite as stiff, and I think he's a little bit. I think he'll end up being a little bit better than Dougie McBuckets was defensively. So I don't want to say there's like a ton of upside there, but I don't necessarily think that like he's an automatic guy that's going to end up not being able to defend in the NBA.
Do you need water?
I do. I got something stuck in my throat as I was in the middle of saying that.
Yeah, Corey Kispert's going to need water too if he defends the way he did down the stretch in his career. He's going to have to defend better. Look, if you look at the Baylor game, Corey Kispert got run off the floor when he was on defense from time to time. He is very good at spacing the floor. He's good at finding open locations. Corey Kispert is someone who on the offensive end of the floor, can be a Doug McDermott type of productive offensive player. If he does not evolve defensively, and if he does not evolve in his ability to create his own shots, that's why there is some apprehension with Corey Kispert. I don't know on Corey Kispert. I don't. I think that he does little things correctly. He does the intangibles. He's going to bring someone that has a terrific attitude about the game of basketball. He really does. Corey Kispert is also a winner. You cannot coach that. He just wins. But his lack of lateral quickness is a huge concern in 2021 NBA. But they needed shooting around Bradley Beal. That's what Washington's looking for. So for the Washington Wizards, does this fit what they might be looking for? It does.
Yeah, I think so as well. And to your point, yes, there are very real issues with him on the defensive end of the floor. But we can say that about a lot. Like Duncan Robinson couldn't play at Michigan when they made their run to the 2018 national title because he was so bad defensively. Now, Duncan Robinson is probably the best shooter in the NBA, and I think you can make an argument he's the best shooter in the world in terms of the level of difficult shots that he can actually make. And I don't think Corey Kispert is quite at that level, but I do think that when you are able to shoot the ball the way that Corey Kispert can and space the floor that way that Corey Kispert is going to, the net positive is going to that's going to outweigh any kind of issues that you have on the defensive end of the floor. Because look, no one's ever going to call Doug McDermott a great defensive player, and no one's ever going to call Duncan Robinson a great defensive player. Joe Harris is probably the best case scenario for Corey Kispert, and Joe Harris just signed an $80 million contract. So if you could tell me that Corey Kispert is half of Joe Harris defensively and just as good of a shooter, then he's going to find a way to have a role and make somebody better, even if that means he is just a guy that comes off the bench to shoot threes when you need threes. And if you get that with the 15th pick, that there's solid value there for a team that is trying to get better in the short term, like the Wizards are. So, I mean, look, he is what he is. And I think that what he is a guy that can impact the team positively right now.
Very classy move and just a great move tonight by the NBA. A quick transition here before we head back to our basketball talk. Right now, Adam Silver and the association had a moment of silence at the Barclays Center for Terrence Clark, who passed away in that tragic car accident out west. The pride of Kentucky. Terrence's family is there tonight in Brooklyn, and we remember Terrence Clark and just the outpouring of love that people had for Terrence. It's easy to see how much he was loved by his family, by his friends. We all miss him, and real classy move by the NBA. Applause to Adam Silver and to Terrence's family. Terrence's family's in the green room tonight. at the NBA draft. This was going to be a night where Terrence's dream came true. So just want to, take a moment there to honor the life of Terrence Clarke, because he was just a tremendous, tremendous man and player, and we do really miss him.
I do feel for BJ Boston, very much so, for the way that whole situation. Can you imagine driving behind a guy that you were that close with and seeing that accident happen? No. So I really feel for him and kind of what he's going through. And it's a little bit of a tangent, but I do think it's worth pointing out. We had a lot of questions about that Kentucky team last year. Well, they lost a player in the middle of the season. There was a guy that was a walk-on for him that played for the baseball team that took his own life in, I believe it was January of last year. So like that team went through it as bad as anybody. So I'm hopeful that memories like this and seeing situations and things like what the NBA did can kind of bring him a little bit of peace and see that, yes, he might not have been there, but he was able to be honored at the NBA draft. So very nice that the NBA was able to do that for him and give him that moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Prayers to Terrence's family. And it's good to see that they are in Brooklyn tonight in the green room. Special moment for the Clarke family as we continue to remember him. Let's transition here back to the draft. This is the Field of 68 Media Network. We are powered tonight by our partners at Bet Rivers. You see that? Use the promo code 250MATCH. You receive up to $250 bonus on your first deposit. I'm John Fanta. He is Rob Dauster. And let's talk about some sleepers here. We've gotten through half the league. We're through 15 picks. But I'm thinking about Jared Butler. I'm thinking about Kai Jones. We're thinking about these guys right here, right now, the potential sleepers in this class. One of them, a potential top 10 pick who's still on the board, Alperen Sengun out of Turkey. Rob, what was your thought process, before I get back to mine, on some of these guys here? Joe Wieskamp. I did not expect you to put that, Mr. Dauster.
So the reason why I love Joe Wieskamp this year is the shooting. And at the end of the day, shooting, I think, matters more than anything else when it comes to being a role player. And I got some stats for you. Look, Fanta, I always get the stats, baby, and I got some stats for you. Ready for this? So Joe Wieskamp, this past season, shot 50% on catch and shoot threes. He shot 56% on threes out to 25 feet. He took 400 threes the last 2 years and shot 46% on those three-point attempts. He's 6'7" with a 6'11" wingspan. Now, how about this? He was top 6 in agility drills at the NBA Combine. He was top 6 in three-quarter court sprint. He has a 42-inch vertical. He's a really good athlete. Functionally, he hasn't quite figured out how to make it all work, right? He's got to learn how to use that athleticism to make him a better defender, because he was very, very, very bad defensively for Iowa. I'm not saying he wasn't. But you give me a guy with that size, you give me a guy with that athleticism, and you give me a guy with that shooting ability, and I'm going to trust my coaching staff to teach me to defend.
All right, I'm breaking in. Here we go, because the graphic's going to pay off right here. Sham Charania reports that the Rockets are taking Alperen Sengun with the number 16 pick. Now, what does that mean? That means that Alperen Sengun to the Houston Rockets, Sengun is someone that at the age of 19, I absolutely love his offensive skill set. I think he plays extremely, extremely hard. He's someone with a motor. He averaged around 3 offensive rebounds per game this past year. 19 years old. He's 6'10". And in the full court, this is someone who can handle the basketball. He can drive into open spaces. He has the ability to finish at the cup. Alperen Sengun has that feel of what could be Jokic in this league. There's sample size that says that this type of international player at 6'10" with the offensive versatility that he has, he might not carry the sexy name factor on draft night, but I think he's going to be someone that we're talking about for a long time. I know that defensively there are questions, but you just said it yourself with different guys like a Duncan Robinson. This is a shot-making league. If you're 6'10", you can handle the basketball. The game goes at your pace. And what I mean by that is not your ability to accelerate. In today's NBA, if you're 6'10", you're a team offensive player, and you know how to decelerate, take the game down a level to your level for a moment. Alperen Sengun can be that. This is a very, very good selection at number 16. I'm surprised he has dropped this much because I think, and thought this in the top 10, that Alperen Sengun can be someone that we're talking about for a very long time, just 19 years of age, but he is a prolific offensive presence at 6'10".
And I will say this. We have now officially reached the point in the draft where I have no idea who is actually making these picks and who is actually getting these players, because I believe that it is Oklahoma City's pick that they are trading to the Rockets. Is that right? So the Rockets are making the pick, and Oklahoma City is going to is the one making the pick for them, and it's going to end up going to the Rockets. So we've officially reached the point in the draft where you have to research who is actually making the draft pick.
Oh, right. Oklahoma City had 16 and 18. In fact, our wonderful producer, Dagan Hughes, we had this thunderstruck graphic conceptually. It was the idea of the morning I woke up. I thought, we're going to talk about OKC and how they could be winners. They don't even own the number 16 pick anymore. It's going to be Houston. It's going to be the Rockets who make this pick with the trade, according to Shams Charania. And so I think that this is a really, really interesting pick. And I think that Alperen Sengun is someone that has the potential to be a guy that could have been taken in the top 10 of this draft, but he just simply was not. High motor, skills that translate to the league, decision-making offensively. Like, what I love about this guy, and I watched tape of him last night, I can't believe at 6'10", his ability to understand the balance of making plays for others and scoring. Now, if you're Houston, how do you manage the deficiencies on the defensive end of the floor, Rob? That's the biggest question. Like, do I think that the Rockets are the best situation for Alperen Sengun? That I don't know. I don't know if it would be like my preferred destination for a player right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough spot, but I do think that he's the kind of guy that will be able to be productive. And I don't think it's a bad thing when you have a couple guys where you know you're going to have a couple years where they have to kind of grow together. Like, just put Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. and Alperen Sengun and let them grow for the next 2 or 3 years and see what you got. It's not that bad of a thing. And, you know, as Woj is reporting, what the Rockets are giving up is 2 future first-round picks to be able to get this pick. So it's something where they said, okay, we really, really like this dude, and we need to find a way to move up and to be able to get him right now. Dagan, if we can go back, Dagan's our producer. If we can go back to that sleepers graphic, there's a couple other names that I just want to kind of touch on a little bit before we move on and before we we're coming up on the end of what we're going to be doing for the show. And I do just want to mention Jeremiah Robinson Earl. And I want you to mention Miles McBride too, Fanta, but I wanted to mention Jeremiah Robinson Earl because to me, it feels like we do this every single year in the draft. We say, okay, there's all these players that are going to end up having these high upsides, and they got to get better at this, and they got to get better at this, and they got to get better at this, and we kind of ignore the Villanova guys. And at what point do all of these NBA franchises just kind of say, hey, you know what? If we get a guy out of the Villanova program, he's going to be a really effective role player in the NBA. We've seen it with Mikal Bridges. We've seen it with Dante DiVincenzo. We've seen it with Sadiq
Josh
Bey.
Hart.
We've seen it, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson. Like, you get a guy out of that program, they teach him how to do what you need to do to be able to be a good basketball player in the NBA. So Jeremiah Robinson Earl, he's 6'10". He went from being, I don't want to say a liability, that's probably too strong, but he went from not being a good defender to being legitimately one of the best and most switchable big man defenders in college basketball this past season. I have questions about the 28% three-point shooting, but I will note this. He was a very good kind of mid-range face-up shooter, especially from the top of the key. And he shot 37% on corner threes this past season, albeit on a small sample size, but I buy the stroke. I think that it's going to be really good long-term. And if he can start knocking down threes, you're getting a guy that is a terrific rebounder, that is really, really strong, that is good enough to be able to switch because he really understands angles. Like he's not gonna be a shut off the valve, Bam Adebayo, switch onto point guards, eat him up kind of a guy, but he will be good enough to switch onto some wing players and be able to get stops. And he's terrific finishing at the rim. I love JRE. Now, I need you to talk to me about Miles McBride because I love this dude. I think that if you're getting him somewhere in the 20s, you're getting an absolutely sensational basketball player.
You are. And Miles McBride out of West Virginia is a sensational basketball player because he played for Bob Huggins at West Virginia, where he learned what it is like to navigate through pick and rolls, to take on extra defenders and still make plays for others, also while knowing when the moment occurs where he has to make the play. Deuce, as he is called, knew every time when to make that play, where to make that play. I watched Bob Huggins coach Javon Carter. I got an up-close seat of this in Boston a couple years ago when Villanova faced West Virginia. All throughout the game, Bob Huggins is riding Javon Carter. And it was just a love-hate coach relationship in a game. Like Javon Carter took nothing personally. That's who Huggy Bear is. This past year during COVID, we had even more of a front row seat to coaches and how they go about their business. Bob Huggins rarely had to put Miles McBride into the right place or figure out something that had to change for Miles McBride. I think that he is a steal. He's someone who, people say he's 6'2", he's undersized. I'm not sure if that can work. I think it can work. I really do. And I think that he is someone who is functional. Wherever you put him on the court, he is someone who's going to be able to function. I think he's got great length because take out the 6'2", look at a 6'9" wingspan. And Rob, when you're 6'2", it means you've got to be good enough defensively, right? You can't be a liability on that end of the floor. Miles McBride is not just someone who knows when the moment calls for him to take the right shot. On the defensive end of the floor, he learned at West Virginia the types of traits that it takes to translate your career into an NBA career. His stock has only risen in the recent weeks and months, and I think that there's enough sample size to say, can Miles McBride make a career in the league? The answer to that question is yes, and that's why he's a sleeper.
So I think he'll be at his best if you could put him next to one of these like jumbo playmakers, right? Yes. Someone in that Cade Cunningham, LaMelo Ball, LeBron James, Luka Doncic kind of a mold. Because I think he is so good as an on-ball defender. You mentioned the 6'9" wingspan. I think that he is also something of a late bloomer. He was a high school football quarterback. He broke his foot as a junior when he was in high school, and it took him a little bit of a while before he kind of reached this level. I also think it's important to note that he made his leap last year after Villanova or after West Virginia lost Oscar Tshiebwe to transfer, and it opened up everything in the paint. They were able to spread those shooters all around the floor and just kind of let Miles McBride rock. And he did a really, really good job with that. Great passer, really good shooter off the bounce, shot 49% on catch and shoot threes. And that, to me, screams everything that you want out of a guard in the NBA in 2021.
Yeah, it does.
Pick here, right?
We do. We have Trey Murphy, who was someone that you were targeting, hanging right around top 15. Where was he going to fall? I think you had him in over-under. He goes number 17 to New Orleans. What's your reaction?
I needed him top 16, Fanta. Oh. We needed him top 16. 1 for 4 on bets tonight, man. Rough. I think it was, was some of these crazy picks early on. I think, you know what it was? The Josh Primo pick ruined everything.
Oh, Greg Popovich ruined your night.
Greg Popovich ruined my night. It's bad enough that he ruined USA basketball. He had to go out and he had to ruin my night as well. Trey Murphy, I love him. I think he is. I mentioned this earlier, but he really is one of the best stories in this year's draft class in terms of the fact that he was a 5'8" freshman in high school, and now he is 6'9" as a junior in college, windmill and dunking all over everybody. I love the fit with him on the Pelicans. I think the Pelicans, I mean, when you have Zion Williamson, like, you just need to put a whole bunch of shooters around him to be able to give him those driving lanes, to be able to create space for him to work around the bucket. And Trey Murphy is one of the best shooters in this year's draft class. He's one of the most switchable wings in this year's draft class. I love it. I think this is a perfect fit for him. And honestly, like, this is going to be a really, really good situation for him to kind of develop, because he can come in. He's not going to have to do anything. He's going to have to stand out there, make open shots, play defense, be 6'9" and athletic. And he can do all of those things. So I like this pick. I like this fit. I like this landing spot for Trey. I'm happy for him. I got a crazy stat.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. One thought on Trey Murphy.
Okay.
You're talking about somebody who barely had any offers, and the offers that he did have originally in college came from low and mid-major programs. He spends a couple of years at Rice. And like you said, in high school, 5'8". And still, when scouts look at him, the book is that Trey Murphy still hasn't even fully framed out physically. And as he stands right now, you're talking about a 6'9" wing with a 7-foot wingspan. He's one of the best shooters in this class. And in a shot-making league, you could get him at number 17. This is a 3-and-D, excellent, not a good, excellent on-ball defender. Trey Murphy is someone that I agree with this pick here at number 17 by New Orleans. I think they made that trade. It was a little bit out of the box. I give it a grade of a B for both teams. I think it can grow to an A if Trey Murphy's able to pan out.
Yeah. I really love the fit. I just do, because, and here's the other thing. These are the numbers that I wanted to give you before the stats. So 90% of his shots this past season came off the catch. 10% of the shots that he attempted were shots that he dribbled into or drove into, right? 90% of them came off the catch. 72% of the twos that he made were assisted. 90% of the threes that he made were assisted this past season. So he's not a guy that's going to go out there to create anything. He's a finisher. He's a guy that catches lobs. He's a guy that hits open threes. He's a guy that takes advantage of what Zion Williamson would create for him, of what Lonzo Bell might be able to create for him. I think that if Kyra Lewis is still in New Orleans, right? Yeah, if Kyra Lewis ends up panning out, I think that he's going to be great at what Kyra Lewis creates for him. I love that this Trey Murphy fit on this roster. All right, Dagan, as we kind of or Fanta, as we kind of roll through the last 7 or 8 minutes of this show before we get out of here.
Sure.
You wanna pick just kind of like our favorite guys left on the board, or the guys that we want to see do really, really well, or some of the players that we think could end up maybe outperforming where they end up getting drafted. Just kind of picks that you end up liking and picks that you're going to be rooting for.
Yeah, well, look, I'm rooting for Jaden Springer here, and I think that the Tennessee guard at just the age of 18 is someone who could be very explosive as a number 2, as a 3-and-D type of number 2, could even play the 1 at times. I know that the shot is not there fully yet. I think that there's concerns about Jaden Springer and whether that shot pans out. But I just love his ceiling at the age of 18. I think you're betting on someone that you know he's super, super athletic. He does engage defensively. Like, Jaden Springer is someone that I think he's a good enough passer, and he does some of the other little things well enough that if he can find that jumper more consistently, because on catch and shoot attempts in the half court, he was only at 50%. Jaden Springer needs to be better there. Some of the other guys that I look at here, I hope that Jared Butler winds up in a good situation. Jared Butler, he thrilled us. He was a thrill to watch in college at Baylor, an All-American. One of those guys that people think great college player, not sure how exactly it'll pan out in the NBA. I hope that Jared Butler figures out and finds the right situation. I hope Ayo Dosunmu is somebody that can find the right situation. Ayo Dosunmu is another guy. Love the way that he allowed the game to go at his pace. There are some thoughts here. The jumper. The jumper is the thing that everybody talks about with Ayo Dosunmu. Is the jumper going to be there? And look, he gets stripped a lot. So can Ayo Dosunmu keep a tight handle as he goes to the NBA? So those are a couple of guys deep into this draft, kind of in the second round, guys that I hope can find a home somewhere. Sandro Mamukelashvili at Seton Hall is at the top of my list. And not just because I own a degree from Seton Hall University. It's because he is 6'11", Rob. And we look at the prototypical big man who's versatile in the NBA. This is one of the guys that's really unique. It's hard. We've talked a good amount about him before. It's kind of hard to understand what kind of an NBA player Sandro Mamukelashvili will be. He averaged 18, 8, and nearly 4 assists per game this past year for Seton Hall, and did quite a bit because Seton Hall didn't have a particularly good supporting cast. I just look at a 6'11" kid from Georgia and everything that he's been through to get to just Seton Hall University, kind of a diamond in the rough there that they recruited over to New Jersey. His dad is a cancer survivor. He's so close with his father and his mother. And I think that's one of the players that I look at deep into this second round, and I say, I hope that he finds a situation that works out for him, because the kid he's put his head down. He came back to college, and we always appreciate a kid who comes back, bets on himself in college, gets his degree, and then has a chance to make it pro.
100%. So those are all the guys that we want to root for. Now I want to bring on a guy that everybody wants to root against. The one and only, my former co-host at Ballin' as a Habit, my former roommate, the one and only Troy Macker. Troy, where you at?
Hey. Also,
there he is.
Employee of Bet Rivers sponsoring the show. Let's not forget.
Yeah, got to make sure we get that in there.
And speaking of Bet Rivers, Rob, you did a horrible job tonight on over-under, so thank you.
I was not good, man. Hey, look, we talked about it. It was Greg Popovich's fault. All right, I had everything right. Greg Popovich messed everything up. Blame him, man. Don't yell at me.
Well, I'll say this: you had a rough night at the bets, but a lot of people didn't. With what was it? With Barnes going 4, that was plus 400, and then Suggs going 5, he was plus 400 as well. I believe the favorites at each of those picks was like minus 1,000, so some wins there. And then with the over unders, with especially like Zaire Williams, that he hit his over. So there's a lot of good wins there. I've been listening to you guys all night. I love the Zaire Williams pick. He isn't super physical. He didn't play a full season. You got to worry about the legs there, but he has so much talent and upside. And I think when you put him with Jaren Jackson Jr. and John Morant and Dylan Brooks and Brandon Clark, that if he ends up being any what you think, and also again after the first 4 or 5 picks, especially in a weak draft, a lot of it's flyers, right? You're hoping for the best, but there are no guarantees after the top 3 picks, and as we've seen, there are not even a lot of guarantees after number 1.
True. And Troy, thanks for hopping on with this. I think one of the more unique situations on this draft night is what Golden State did with 2 lottery picks. They go with Jonathan Kaminga at number 7. There were thoughts that maybe Kaminga falls. Where exactly does he go here? Well, he still gets picked at number 7. And then they go with Moses Moody at number 14. And if you looked at mock drafts heading into this week, Moses Moody was somebody who people thought he's a bucket, 19 years old, but a high shot percentage maker. Athleticism, but offensively, somebody who's going to contribute to a roster. I'm really interested to see here if Golden State can hit on this or how things do shake out, because I think it's 2 different ends of the spectrum here between Kuminga and Moody, and they got both those players.
Can I just say one thing real quick?
Go for it.
We're back in the winners column, baby. Trey Man just went 18th. We hit that under. Got some plus juice on that. Bet Rivers is going to give you some money tonight, baby.
So what does that put you at? 2 and 5?
2 and 4. 2 and 4. 2 and 4,
okay.
Fanta. Okay.
2 and 4. 2 and 4.
I punched Oklahoma City, I think.
Okay.
I hope. We're at the point in the draft where nobody actually knows who's picking for who.
You're 2 and 4. Dauster's 2 and 4, so he's basically on the trajectory that 2020-21 Kentucky basketball was on.
I can't give him cannot give Rob the full win there, because in his write-up at betrivers.com, he goes, I'm only mentioning Trey Man under 25.5 because I've heard and read a few times that the Lakers would be interested in taking him at 22. So you didn't even get the right pick. So I'll give you like 3/4 there.
You brought receipts with you.
Oh, I have to with Rob. Oh
Yes.
man,
Yeah.
save everything. Save everything.
Troy, I have a question.
Mhm.
Is anyone from Georgetown getting drafted tonight?
Nope. No one from the Big East tournament champion Georgetown Hoyas is getting drafted.
Ooh, there you go.
No.
All right, there you go. There you go.
Hey, look, you got Dante Harris coming back. You've got Ryan Mutombo coming in. You've got Aminu Mohammed coming in. A loaded freshman class. Jordan Riley. The Georgetown Hoyas bring in a lot of fresh talent. Now they just got to keep that talent on the hilltop. I mean, that's for sure. But going back to it, 7-14. I mean, we're going to wrap up here shortly. Let's transition to this. Let's start with you, Troy, and that is your biggest takeaway here from the 2 hours that the draft has been going on. What's your biggest takeaway, and who is your biggest winner? They don't have to be the same answer. Your biggest takeaway, your biggest winner here from the night, in your opinion.
Biggest winner, the Detroit Pistons. Honestly, I think Cade Cunningham. He's a guy. The third time I saw him play, throw him a jersey, he's ready for the NBA. I don't know if he'll be a scoring champion or NBA champion, but he has a sturdy head on his shoulders, incredible talent from end to end, and a really good IQ. He plays like a slow-mo style. I think any thought to not taking him number one is a waste of breath. And then the biggest surprises for me, it's honestly continuing to see as many non-NCAA players go this high. And we're really seeing, 2 G League players now in the top 5 or 7. I think this is going to be a trend that just continues, especially, going forward with all the changes in college sports. And it makes it interesting because, I know us, I watch 5 to 6 college basketball games a night. I am just doing college basketball nonstop in the fall and winter. I don't get a chance to watch a lot of these guys in the G League. I read a lot about it, but there's more of a learning curve now for college hoops people, and that was just before when there was a dearth of international players, and now there's homegrown players who aren't playing in the primary spot. So it's been really fun, but there's just a lot of unknown for me, more than probably any of the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I agree with you in that statement, and I think that makes it even more difficult to handicap, to figure out on draft night. It makes life more difficult because there was no world tonight where we thought the San Antonio Spurs were going to take Josh Primo. He was a consensus maybe first-round pick. That was the consensus that maybe he would be, and he goes number 12 this evening.
Yeah, the Spurs could have got him in a few different ways. They could have traded back out of the lottery to get maybe a second round and a late first and take him. Then they could have used their early second round pick and traded back into the first to get him late. And then to see them take him at 12 or wherever I forgot he was a thing that existed. I remember very much about Alabama. They were one of the most fun teams to watch play. They were can't miss. I don't remember him at all. He played 22 minutes a game, 8 points a game. He was a good shooter, but I don't remember him at all.
No, I
feel bad saying that, but
Troy Macker, advanced scout, baby, you gotta love it.
I did that in the lottery.
No, you're right.
In my head, I said who he played for. I had no idea who he was. And
well, your point about not trading back, I think, is really, really salient because you lose value. Like that's where you lose the value. That's where the really sharp teams end up gaining value, is by trading back and finding a way to get that same player while adding other draft picks. Because at the end of the day, the more draft capital you have, the more things that you're going to be able to do with them. Even if it's like the 50th pick in the draft. I mean, we saw the 53rd pick in the draft get sold for $2 million. Now, $2 million is $2 million, but if you're going over the luxury tax, that money adds up long term. So it just, yes, you're right. It seemed like a little bit of lost value there. I will say this, Fanta, the biggest winner for me, look, yeah, it was Detroit because they got Cade Cunningham. But beyond that, it was Orlando. I mean, I love Jalen Suggs coming in. I love Franz Wagner coming in.
I agree.
And getting both of those guys, you got, in my mind, you got the second best player in this draft with the 5th pick. That's awesome. You got a franchise-changing point guard with the 5th pick, and you combined him with a guy who is like the prototype role player that you want in the NBA in the year of our Lord 2021. So for me, Orlando Magic, they were the big winners.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. Couple of updates now as the first round goes on. As we talk about trades, New York, if they hadn't gone on a playoff run, it wasn't a long run, but they made the playoffs. I don't know what the fan base would be like right now, but the Knicks, they traded the 19th pick to Charlotte for a future first-round pick. Charlotte then takes Kai Jones, someone who Rob had as a sleeper player. Kai Jones goes number 19.
That's another over, baby. Let's go. 3 or 4 on the night. Come on, Troy. Come on.
Rob, Jeff Fisher Dauster is now 3 and 4 on the evening.
Well done.
Atlanta, per Woj, Atlanta keeps its pick at number 20. Atlanta takes Jalen Johnson. Boomer bust here. Like, I thought Jalen Johnson, he's another player who I have a tough time getting a full feel for as he enters the association. Before we wrap up here, Atlanta takes Johnson. But I like the potential fit here with Atlanta. I like what Atlanta's got going on. I think that Jalen Johnson could actually pan out as an Atlanta Hawk.
He's a really high-level passer. He's a fantastic athlete. We saw him dunk all over that guy on Clemson this year. There are very real concerns that I have about things that kind of went on with some of the last couple. Like, he left his high school team at IMG halfway through a season, and he left Duke halfway through the season. And while I do bristle a little bit at calling people quitters that leave teams in the middle of a pandemic and do things to kind of help themselves, I don't know if Jalen necessarily checks all those boxes. All that said, the dude is really, really talented, and he's kind of built for playing at the NBA level. And he's a guy that can kind of take on those secondary, even backup point guard duties to try to give Trae Young a little bit of a rest. So I get it. I think it's a perfect dice roll at this point in the draft. You're getting into the late 20s. You want to bet on guys with high upside. You either want to get someone that can come in and be a role player immediately and play 20 minutes off the bench, or you want to bet on a guy that you think could end up being one of the 25 best players in the NBA down the road. So I love that pick. Love Kai Jones. And I think that Kai Jones is going to have a chance. I mean, Charlotte got some talent in this year's draft. So good things coming for the Hornets.
Yeah, all I'll say about this on the Hawks is I think that was the right pick by them. I don't know if Johnson's going to pan out, but they needed athletic wings who can play multiple positions. They have some good wings in Herter and Reddish, but Reddish has some injury concerns there, and DeAndre Hunter down low. They needed more multi-positional athletes, and if he pans out, they'll just be another bullet in the holster for them. And the Hawks just continue to stockpile young talent. This is a team that could be exceptionally good in a year or two, and we already saw how good they were making to the Eastern Conference Finals. But again, I don't know if it'll pan out, but I think this was the smart choice by the Atlanta Hawks given what they're looking to do in adding to depth in their roster.
Yeah, what Nate McMillan did this past year, Atlanta put together a historic season, and I think you're exactly right, Troy. Like, Jalen Johnson is the right pick there. Whether or not he pans out is a different story, but you can't make a pick that's a reach in this situation. You have to try to trust your gut. I think that they did. I have a couple takeaways here because I asked you guys for takeaways, and Rob stole it. I think that the Orlando Magic are huge, huge winners here, so I'm not going to pick another winner because Orlando was the big winner. 3 thoughts here. Number 1, biggest surprise that I still can foresee panning out, I'll pay the respect to Leonard Hamilton. It was Scotty Barnes going forward because we thought that the top 4 or 5 in this draft was pretty dead set, and we thought that Jalen Suggs would go number 4 to the Raptors. Orlando doesn't become a big winner in this draft if they don't have Jalen Suggs fault in them, but I still think that Scotty Barnes, I always wonder this, if Scotty Barnes didn't wear a Florida State jersey and he wore a Duke jersey, would we change the way that we think about Scotty Barnes? I think that the nation certainly would. I don't know about an actual evaluator of talent, but that's my thought there. Number 2, the dynamic duo I'm most looking forward to watching, Charlotte. Charlotte, with LaMelo Ball now working with James Bouknight. I think that is the dynamic duo in the NBA that we could be watching here for the future years to come. And number 3, the guarantee slice of New York pizza that you can always count on, the bagel with cream cheese that you always know you're going to be able to get, When you go to Indiana, you're going to see Chris Duarte knocking down shots. That was a good guarantee number 13 pick by the Pacers, and I think he pans out there. Let's thank Bet Rivers. Again, we want to remind you guys here, before we go, let's tell you about our sponsors over at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up yet, what are you waiting for? Bet Rivers is offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart from everyone else is that they require just one playthrough to turn that bonus into cash money. Not Rob Dauster's cash money, Troy Macker's cash money, but the point resides. With their new Rush Pay instant approval, withdrawals are not only fast, they are safe, they're secure, they're reliable. Go to betrivers.com today or download the Bet Rivers iOS app. You must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem, you call 1-800-GAMBLER. We've been on with you for 2+ hours. You can catch the draft over on ESPN ABC. You can follow us at the Field of 68. Troy, any last words?
You did that read great. I've had to do a read or two like that. You did it much better. So thanks for having me on, guys. This is one of my favorite nights of the year. It's really for college hoops fans. It's the passing of the torch. This is for a lot of these guys. This is the last time you'll pay a ton of attention to them. But I love the draft night, and there's still tons of guys on the board. Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Ayo Dosunmu, Cam Thomas. I mean, there are guys left who 2 years ago were in lottery picks for future drafts. Especially Jeremiah Robinson Earl. I remember doing a mock draft 2 years ago where he was a late lottery pick. So even though he stayed in he's dropped a little bit, there is talent to be had, and I'm super excited to watch the next hour and a half, 2 hours. So thanks again.
Rob, your parting shot.
My parting shot is that I don't really have one, man. Like I love this night. I love breaking down these players. I love trying to figure out how they're going to fit. I love the shock of when you get that Woj bomb or that Shams bomb that says Scotty Barnes is going fourth. I love when we're sitting here live on the stream and it's like Josh Giddey just went 6 to Oklahoma State. Who had that one? I love when you get Josh Primo coming in. I love when we see guys like Davion Mitchell, who are college basketball nerds, fall in love with over the course of 2, 3, 4 years. So it's such a great night. I mean, Fanta, you know this. We cover these guys for so long to be able to see them realize their dreams. It's really cool. It's really fun. It's always a great night. And I love it so much, man. I love it so much. It's the perfect way to put a bow to end the let's call it the college basketball cycle. And now we can look forward officially to the 21-22 season.
And if you think college basketball is going this way, I got news for you. 2021-22 is going way up.
To the moon, baby. To the moon.
To the moon. Put me on the back of that rocket. For Rob Dauster, for Troy Macker, for our producer, Dagan Hughes, I'm John Fanta. Thank you, Bet Rivers, for sponsoring the Field of 68 NBA Draft Special. Have a great night, everybody, and continue to follow us at the Field of 68. See ya.